Welcome to another episode of the Best You Podcast. Today we have an extraordinary guest, Chris Burres. He's an expert on longevity and the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC. In this episode, we're going to dive into the groundbreaking discovery of the molecule that's called ESS60, which has been shown to extend the lifespan of mammals by up to 90%. I mean, imagine the possibility of living up to 152 years old. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the follow button on the Apple Podcast and on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode that is packed with valuable health and wellness insights. Tuning into today's episode, you guys are going to learn about the dangers of what are called reactive oxygen species. You're going to learn about the critical roles that glutathione and melatonin play in longevity. And you'll learn about the importance of an anti-inflammatory diet and an antioxidant-rich diet. Chris also reveals what top longevity experts believe are the three most important factors to living a longer life. For now, it's time to get closer and closer to your best you with the one and only Chris Burres. All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Best You Podcast. Today, I am really excited to be joined by Chris Burres today, and today we're going to figure out how to live longer. Chris, you guys have this molecule that is said to have the ability to potentially extend the lifespan of mammals by 90%, and that's almost doubling your lifespan would be 100%. So 90% is almost doubling lifespan. First off, talk about or give us the insight as to how this discovery of this molecule came about.
Yeah, just to give a point of reference, if the average human lived 90% longer, then the average human would live 152. And because of our mindsets about aging, I say 152, and everybody immediately goes to, oh, the oldest human will be 152. No, there's a bell curve around 152 with people living much longer. 152 is average. So it is a significant result. In fact, it's the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history. It is because of this molecule. If you're listening, don't worry. Imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. You have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The molecule was discovered in 1985. The three scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 96. My business partner and I started manufacturing it in 1991. So we're the oldest and longest manufacturers of this molecule. If you're going to consume the molecule, we call it ESS60. When you think about the 90%, so my business partner and I, for various reasons, tried not to get into the health supplement industry. It's very different than delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. The exacting standards are very different. But we were trying not to get into that industry for really from mid-2013 all the way until 2017. Finally, a guy with the big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. And then we brought this to market in 2018. Your question was like, what might have caused this extension of life? Maybe I'm interpreting that question. Kind of there's a couple layers of this. Let me just start on kind of the most recent and kind of more sophisticated model, which we call the BOSS model. So we say that this soccer ball shaped ESS60 molecule is the BOSS, where BOSS stands for Buffering Oxidative Stress System. And the way to describe this, we know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s when it was first discovered that it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. So let's get a little kind of biology. Let's dive in a little bit. Mitochondria, of course, the powerhouse of every cell. Every cell in your body, except for hemoglobin, has between 5 and 5,000 mitochondria. Also, your neurons and your brain cells have 2 million mitochondria. So it is like without mitochondria function, we just do not live past 20 seconds or even less. And in fact, for those 20 seconds, you're not thinking, so it doesn't really matter, right? So when the mitochondria is producing energy for your cells, it produces ATP. That's the energy source that your cells actually use to be a liver cell, heart cell, lung cell, whatever. as it's producing energy, just like most energy production processes, there are negative byproducts. Your car going down the road has exhaust. Your power plant has an exhaust, a smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, it's reactive oxygen species. These are negatively charged particles that, if left to their own devices, will run around like little bumper cars and damage everything they bump into. Inherent in the mitochondria to manage these, right? Your car has a catalytic converter, your power plant has a smokestack scrubber. Inside your mitochondria, you have glutathione and melatonin. Remember melatonin because it's the sleep hormone and it's related to one of our most consistent testimonials. So there's a great closed loop there. But we know that different mitochondria or different areas of our body can get depleted of components from time to time. When that mitochondria is depleted of glutathione and melatonin, that's when those reactive oxygen species can run around. I give this kind of analogy. It's kind of fun. It's Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is over. You're on Bourbon Street and you've got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around, busting light poles, spray painting things. And the police, the glutathione and melatonin, come in and they handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. But what do they do when they exhaust the glutathione and melatonin? That's where this ESS60 molecule comes in. Like a paddy wagon, it can hold on to, like you could picture it being inside the molecule. That's just not what's happening. It can hold on to those reactive oxygen species until that mitochondria can replenish the glutathione and the melatonin, and then they can come in and handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that model really explains a whole lot of things. You can imagine if the powerhouse of every cell in your body is producing less negative impact or is having less negative impact on your body than usual because of this molecule, then that can explain longevity. It can also explain, like, we have testimonials from head to toe. We have testimonials like hair growing in faster with the original color. We've got literally head to toe. We have an influencer who, when he was 5, a crab bit his big toe, split his toenail. After he started taking our product, it healed at 65. So 60 years later, that toenail finally healed. And so what could explain head to toe benefits? Potentially, our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Better sleep could have a positive impact on your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. But that boss theory is really kind of where we hang our hat now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that was great. And you did a great job of simply explaining that, but to just kind of like back it up for people. So the BOSS stands for buffering oxidative stress system. And then he talked about how with energy creation in the mitochondria, with ATP creation in the mitochondria or production in the mitochondria, the negative byproducts of that are reactive oxygen species, ROS. And basically, when those things are running rampant, they can cause issues. Normally, the mitochondria has glutathione and melatonin to help combat those reactive oxygen species, but we can only create so much of those things. So when they're depleted, this ESS molecule can hold on to them and essentially hold them captive so they're not running rampant and causing negative damage, allowing the mitochondria to build up the glutathione and melatonin production so that it can then resume its job in eliminating these reactive oxygen species. Is that a relatively good synopsis? Okay, great. So I want to thanks. Well, hey, the teacher, the teacher was pretty good. It was pretty darn clear. So that was awesome. Glutathione and melatonin. Let's talk about those real quickly if we can. Is there a way to? I know this is kind of away from your molecule a little bit, but is there a way to improve our ability to produce those? I'm assuming as we age, it's a natural decline of how well we are at producing glutathione and melatonin. Is there a way to improve our production of those things? Do we know?
Yeah, glutathione, melatonin, very important. My understanding of glutathione is that if you were to just consume the molecule, it can't get through the gut lining, so there's no real value. I'm talking with one company, and there are companies that have the solution of taking the precursors to glutathione, and those can get through the gut lining, and then those can add value. I think you can also go do like glutathione IV drips. Glutathione is an amazing antioxidant, one of the few that gets into the mitochondria and works at that core location, like where you really need it to. Melatonin, of course, the sleep hormone. A lot of people don't realize that melatonin is a great antioxidant. Melatonin, when it comes to sleep, the best way to describe it, right? So one of our consistent testimonials is related to sleep, and people are like, "Oh, I'll just take melatonin." Great. There are some challenges with melatonin. There's a really good book by Dr. Matthew Walker called "Why We Sleep." Amazing book. The scariest book you'll ever read about sleep. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books. Not that, Freddy Krueger would wake you up or keep you up. It's the opposite. It'll make you sleep because you know what happens if you don't sleep. He talks about melatonin being the firing gun for going to sleep, right? It's the chemical that when it's elevated in your body is saying, hey, it's time to get ready to go to sleep. So if you don't take it at the right time, or you take too much of it, you can imagine if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's not your usual go to sleep time, and you've got this chemical in your body telling your body, hey, it's time to get ready to go to sleep. No, you're supposed to be asleep already. So if you get it wrong, you can actually be groggy in the morning. You can mess up with your sleep. But melatonin does have a place. It's just, you've got to be really careful with the dosing. And I think the typical supplement that you would buy is actually a lot more melatonin than you really need. And then glutathione has its own challenges.
Gotcha. So I'm going to go right into it. In the beginning, you said like the average human, if they live 90% longer, could be 152. Like, where is your opinions, thoughts, or optimistic predictions of like, do you truly expect to live to 152 to yourself if you continue to take this thing? Or like, what do you realistically expect? I know it's speculation, is hard to say, but like, seriously, like, are you a lot more comfortable? Like, I know I'm going to be living over 100 now, or I'm largely 80% more confident that I'm going to live over 100 now. Like, where are you with regards to your belief on that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. So I wrote a book, Live Longer and Better, which talks about the molecule, the discovery, the study, all of this stuff. And one of the things that I share in the book is fairly early on, and I don't remember when or where I got the number, but my target was to live to 125. And I'm totally honest, in my mind, 125 wasn't going to look very good, right? It was going to be, marine crawling across that line, that finish line, barely making it. And my vision of that 125 years is very different. I recently did a longevity summit. I interviewed 55 experts in longevity, including Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey, Dr. Stephen Gundry, and 52 other amazing longevity experts. And each of them I asked the question, how long do you intend to live? And then how long do you think humans can live? And a couple telling things came out of that. But let me just share how I would answer that. I would say that it's a two-pronged answer. One of the answers is 125, and the other one is, I think it's highly probable that I'll live a lot longer than that. And that's not just my product, that is the advancement in medical science. There's this thing called the escape velocity of aging, where you're familiar with it, right? That where the medical community is able to extend life by more than 1 day every day. And so what that means is, if we get to that point, that there will be a last person to die of natural causes. And it would suck to be that last person. I guess technically you wouldn't know that you were the last person. But like, I want to be on the other side, whatever finish line that guy or girl is on, I want to be on the other side of the finish line. And I think that finish line is going to happen a lot faster than we realize. A great book, Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, by Dr. David Sinclair. Amazing Harvard researcher, really kind of cutting edge. He's a little out there, but he's talking about, reaching the escape velocity of aging. And I think that's going to happen. And what really gives me a lot of confidence in it is if you think about medical information, back in 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, every 50 years. Today, it doubles every 73 days, right? And what that means for this year is we're going to have 16 times more medical information at the end of this year than we had at the beginning of this year. And I believe that that doesn't even take into account AI, because AI is relatively recent. And actually, my opinion is AI, it can help you write papers faster, right? But I don't think that's going to it doesn't necessarily speed up the work that has to happen in order to write a paper. But what it will do, I believe, is make sure that we do the research that's the most valuable, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're putting in these kind of sophisticated models and it's able to go like, don't waste your time on that molecule. You should be focused on this molecule. So not only will information be increasing at a faster rate, not because of AI, but because of AI, what we research will be better. And so if there is any vision, if there is any capability biologically, it's going to happen a lot faster than we realize.
Are you somebody who used to be confident in your health, but you've fallen out of a good routine and you're looking to regain the confidence in your body and your health that you once had? What's up, you guys? I'm Nick Carrier, and I'm a body optimization coach and creator of the 10-week transformation that has transformed the bodies and the lives of over 700 people thus far. And I want to tell you about the 10-week transformation challenge. This is a challenge that will completely reset the way that you feel. It's going to completely change the way that you see yourself in the mirror and transform the way that you look at yourself in the mirror. We have a proven framework called the 5 steps to goal success that's going to allow you to set a very specific target, a very specific goal to be at by the end of the 10 weeks. Then we're going to set weekly goals. Then we're going to have the most badass workouts that there are. And you're going to completely transform the way you look and feel in just 10 short weeks. This isn't just trying to look different or trying to feel different or trying to eat healthier or trying to exercise more. This is a plan to do it at a super high level. And I'm the best fitness coach here in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you're in Nashville, you can join today at nickcarrier.com/10WT. If you're not in Nashville, we have a virtual version of the program as well that you can also find at nickcarrier.com/10WT. So click on that link below and you will not regret it. There's over 700 people that have done it thus far. There have been people who have done it 10, 11, 12, 13 times because they've seen such great results and just can't stop. So go nickcarrier.com/10WT to get started today. That's awesome. That's super exciting stuff. And I want to at some point get back to the interviews you did with all these longevity and biohacking people and talk about some of the habits that you're implementing or some of the habits that people seem to be really beneficial. But I want to go back to y'all's molecule, the ESS molecule. You talk about how...
So, it's the ESS60. So it stands for elemental safe spheres and then 60 molecules.
Yes, you're right. Sorry, I wrote that down the first time and not the second time. ESS60. You talk about how you said that your response or your reasoning as to its benefit right now is kind of that BOSS theory, the buffering oxidative stress system theory, basically, of allowing the mitochondria to build back up its glutathione and melatonin so that it can rid of reactive oxygen species. Talk to us about what is like the negative impact of having just free reactive oxygen species at a high number running rampant throughout the body. Like, what are the things that are going to happen to us from a health perspective if those things are running rampant?
Yeah. So I think the best way to address this is I'll go back and kind of talk about how the medical community thinks about aging in general, right? They tend to think of it as an oxidation and an inflammation process. So when you're asking, like, what does it do? Well, the medical community would say that those free radicals, as they're running rampant in your body, are aging your body, right? They're causing, I mean, the best way to think about it is like rust. They're rusting your body from the inside out. That's kind of a very kind of top level way to look at it. And if we think about the medical community's thought process of aging being oxidation and inflammation, in fact, there's a word inflammaging because inflammation is that damaging that they've kind of coupled those together. We check both of the boxes, right? So one of them, I talked about the boss theory, but I haven't shared. There's an ad hoc study out on the web that shows us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research that shows us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. And vitamin C is the go-to. Like, you got a sniffle, you got a cold, you got like whatever, like your orange juice and vitamin C or emergency, right? So we definitely check that box. The other is the inflammation side of things. And well, just being a great antioxidant will reduce inflammation, right? And one of the things that you got to be very careful about, if you're trying to hormetically stress your body for improvements. So, right, in the process of building muscle, you have to break down muscle, you have to stress that muscle, and then it's the hormetic response that builds that muscle. And it's known that if you take the wrong kind of antioxidants, you can actually dampen that hormetic response. So you can actually reduce the muscle gains and the strength gains that you might have gotten. So, and in fact, there's a kind of a big influencer, big meaning muscular, and then also popular. Chris Gethin, he actually trains a lot of Bollywood stars. He was a speaker at the recent biohacking conference. That's Dave Asprey's biohacking conference in Dallas, and he mentioned our product, and he mentioned it as a great antioxidant that doesn't dampen hormetic response. But anyway, so antioxidants can help with inflammation. Just on its own, we have to be really careful here. The FDA will allow us to say that we address inflammation due to exercise, right? So you've had a tough workout. Some people have just walked longer than normal and woken up and felt that inflammation in their bodies. Like, we address that. What the FDA doesn't allow us to say is that we address other types of inflammation, because those are chronic inflammation. Those are the inflammation or the diseases of aging. And there you're talking about arthritis, cardiovascular disease, cancers, Alzheimer's. Just a lot more research needs to be done before we can start talking about those. I will share, though, that we fit perfectly in with an anti-inflammatory diet, right? So the Blue Zones anti-inflammatory diet, that's known that people consume, that are known to have reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attacks, and actually to live longer. And we fit perfectly within that diet.
It sounds like you said, aging in general is described as kind of an oxidation and inflammatory process, and that basically your product helps to combat both sides of that aging process as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory product, correct?
But we can only claim as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation.
Right. Okay. Great. Beautiful. What other habits are you doing, if that's the aging process, right? Like, what other habits are seen as maybe habits that are anti-inflammatory habits? That could be nutritional, supplementary, things of that nature. What are some habits that are antioxidant? Again, that could be nutrition and other. And what are seen as both? What are some other like habits, nutrients, food, etc., that you see as truly beneficial to the slowing of the aging process?
Yeah, I think the best way for me to kind of address that is to talk about, when I interviewed the 55 experts, every single one of them, I asked, hey, give me 2 to 3 habits, mindsets, protocols, let's call them shortcuts, because everybody likes shortcuts, that you would share for longevity or a long health span. And we broke down those numbers. 33% mentioned mindset, about 54% mentioned exercise and nutrition, 54% mentioned each one of those. Not necessarily the same people. And then I think it was like 24% mentioned sleep. And at first, I thought that they got it wrong. I thought, sleep, you read the book, Why We Sleep, Freddy Krueger book about sleep, like it's good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. How can it be so low on the protocol? And then it took me a couple of days and I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait a minute, what they did get it wrong, but the way they got it wrong was mindset is significantly more important, right? The reality is if you know you need to make movement or exercise changes and you don't have the right mindset, it's not going to happen. If you know you need to make nutrition changes and you don't have the right mindset, it's not going to happen. And sleep, you need to go to sleep at the same time, wake up at the same time, put your device down an hour before you go to sleep. Like, if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to make those changes. And so I think mindset is the first thing. I'm working on a longevity course kind of born out of the knowledge that came from these interviews. And week one is not nutrition. It's not exercise. It's not sleep. It's like, hey, let's just get some mindset habits in place that are really, really easy. Because I'm a big believer. I don't know if you follow Dave Ramsey or not. Like his approach to getting rid of credit card debt is don't pay the smart one, which would be the one with the highest interest rate. Pay the small one, even if it's got a lower interest rate, because you get the emotional gain. Like if there's a limitation that humans have, and we have so many, like we just have so many, then you got to address that in any program that you're putting together. And so that's mine is like, hey, 2 minutes of when you wake up, journal. I'm not talking 6 pages. I'm not talking 1 page. I'm talking like 2 sentences, like, or just 2 thoughts and when you wake up and in the evening. And so that is what you need to do on day one. Let's get this mindset right so that when you start making changes for nutrition or sleep or exercise / movement, you're able to stick with it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I want to dive a little bit deeper on that. You said your week one of the course is going to be mindset. So let's dive a little bit deeper on it. Like what are maybe, if you interview these 55 experts and 33% of them mentioned mindset, what do they mention? Is it like a particular habit, like journaling? Is it just a particular viewpoint on and perspective on a particular thing, or a perspective on stress, or a perspective on life? Like what did you learn as to what are like the mindset keys to actually live longer?
So you bring up a very interesting point, right? Because I actually had a team member of mine collate that data. And it's highly possible that what got lumped into mindset were things like meditation, right? Things like yoga. One of the cool things about yoga and even Pilates is a couple of those, and Tai Chi can check off a couple of boxes, right? So there's 4 pieces of movement that I believe you need, which are you need strength training, you need balance, you need VO2 max, and you need flexibility, right? So 2 of those, the balance and the flexibility, can be yoga, can be Tai Chi, and then throw in meditation, because yoga really can get meditative, and so can Tai Chi. So those are really, really good practices. I need to go back and ask, because those are clearly mindset, but are they working on the mindset to have the right? I think meditation definitely is, right? Meditation is about understanding you have thoughts that come up that you don't control, but you can then make decisions of what to do with those thoughts. Right. So when you're meditating, if you've meditated, you're trying to like have no thoughts, and that never happens. Like it just never happens. And the thought comes up, and the thought comes randomly, right, from seemingly nowhere. And then you can work on managing that. And that's a great skill if you're like, your thoughts are, I don't want to exercise, but you can manage it. You learn to manage it with meditation. So, I would say absolutely meditation is on there. I think even you could throw in, and we actually broke this out as a separate category, but for mindset, it could actually be the relationships that you have, right? And we break that down in that course into a separate week. But those relationships have an impact on your mindset. That connection to community has an impact on your mindset. I think in terms of changing your mindset, it's a tough one. And that's why I lean on journaling in that course, and you'll lean on affirmations. I think I also am very lucky, and he was a speaker on the summit. One of my best friends is Patrick Wanis. He's a human behavior expert and the best therapist I can imagine. And so I lean on him a lot for kind of mindset changes. And the reality is, if you know you need to make a change, whether it's exercise or diet or relationships or whatever, and you've given it enough time to try and make those changes, and you haven't made those changes, then something's holding you back, and you got to figure out how to address that. And if that's with Juanis, because he's amazing, or if that's with some other amazing therapists, I tend to believe that just talk therapy, you can get as good a results by having a reasonably intelligent, good friend that you go have coffee with, right? That's my opinion. You need to find somebody who's one step up for it. It shouldn't be something in my mind that you're attending once a week. I'm not against it and great. But when I work with Patrick, we're solving something in 90 minutes. And then I don't need to see him for that type of help, sometimes for years.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like from mindset, one of the biggest overall takeaways that you have from it is having a, quote unquote, good mindset, whatever that means, is having the ability to do the things that you kind of know you should be doing. And if you're not doing them, unpacking why, so that you can develop the mindset so that you actually do it. You said 54% mentioned exercise and nutrition. I'm sure you probably dove maybe a little bit deeper, and I know everybody has their different, obviously, thoughts on nutrition or whatnot, but are there like 1, 2, or 3 like foods that you've learned from these people and you've been like, okay, I'm going to start eating this food more because of what I've learned? Are there like 1, 2, or 3 foods that you have started to implement more based on the knowledge that you've gained from these people?
So interestingly, I interviewed 55 experts in longevity and then chose a diet by an influencer. Now, the influencer is Alex Hormozi. You may he's all over the place, so you've heard of him. And he's not just an influencer. He's not just a business guy. He actually built a gym business, right? So he's definitely in the health space. But I'm like, that dude has a 6-pack for 20 years. He's built built and sold a company for $47 million and eats cookies every day, right? That's what I want to do. We can assess the health of that later. Let's just get to that point. And it turns out that the key thing that he was talking about is 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. That I implemented not because of the summit, but because that was working for him, and I like cookies. We'll just be honest. And it's maybe not cookies, I like a cookie. So that's where I started, and then that sent me down a whole lot of rabbit holes. And not even that many, but Gabriella Lyons talking about protein, Peter Attia's interviews on protein, and they all are leaning in this 1 pound. 1 gram of protein per pound of body mass, lean body mass. And I can tell you, as soon as I implemented that, I actually noticed, without a change in my training, muscle mass differences. And I'm 55. That's not really supposed to be happening. And the reason it wasn't happening is because I wasn't consuming enough of protein. And just to give your audience some sort of sense, I do intermittent fasting. So my first meal's at 3. I'm full of protein. It's up to here. And then I'm eating again at, say, 7. I'm still full and shoving another half pound of protein down my throat. It's a lot of protein. But the reality is, until up to the age of 30, your muscle cells are replenished every 90 days, right? We know our skin cells, but because we can't see it, we don't realize that our heart cells are replaced, our liver, every muscle in your body is brand new every 90 days. Up until age 30, our bodies are really good at taking the amino acids out of the existing cells and reusing them. After 30, not so much, which sounds like a death sentence, except you can augment that with protein consumption. But it is a lot of protein, and I'm full. I used to be a 1 egg guy because I was trying to count my calories, right? Or keep track of my calories. And now, you just shouldn't eat less than 3, probably 4. Right? Because there's, 6 grams of protein per egg. So there's 12, 20, you want 24 grams. You got to be close to the 30-gram mark to hit muscle synthesis, right? Your body won't start making muscle unless it knows it has enough protein. So you need about 25 to 30 grams of protein. So even 4 is probably a little light. And so it's a lot of protein. And that's the biggest change that I've made in nutrition. And really the realization, which I probably knew, but just hadn't cemented in my mind. We think about macros, right? We think about carbs, protein, and fat. What I don't think we think about is one of them is totally unnecessary. You will live without carbs. You will not live without protein, and you will not live without fat, but you will live without carbs. And you should keep that in mind as you're going. Now, I do sweet potatoes. Like I have a sweet potato like basically every day. It's carbs. It's a resistant starch, right? So I'm feeding my gut bacteria. That really came from Gundry before I was actually on his podcast pre-pandemic and kind of followed his diet in the middle of the pandemic. So I tend to follow a lot of what he says, not everything. Stay focused on protein, augment with whatever veggies, because you can just eat unlimited veggies basically. Like that's the like you get too full. And then just I tend to stay away from carbs when I can. But I do have a square of, this is my wall between me and an entire Cheesecake Factory cheesecake, which I don't even think is possible, but I have a square of dark chocolate and a square of milk chocolate at the end of my night, right? So I try and do that well before 10, but it's usually about 9. And that's me sitting on the couch, enjoying my little chocolate, drinking my mocktail, which has some cranberry juice in it, and some mint. And that's again, the barrier between me and, a dessert disaster every night.
For sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing your diet and how you approach things. That's all really great. And yeah, I mean, especially 1 gram per pound of lean body mass is a lot of protein, especially if you're intermittent fasting. That makes it harder to, because then you only have 2 meals basically to get it in rather than 3, so you can't really space it out as much. But no, this has been great.
I'll share with you on days that I do resistance training. So like today, I finished the resistance training, and then I'll have like 30 grams of protein in the form of yogurt, right?
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, this has been awesome, super informative, and I really appreciate you breaking down the molecule ESS60 and y'all's boss theory around how you think it really helps to extend lifespan. And then I really appreciate you digging into a lot of some of the other things that we can do to help improve our longevity, our lifespan, our health span, and all that kind of stuff as well. I'll ask one final question here in a second, but y'all need to make sure you go follow Chris. You can follow his company's Instagram at MyVitalC. You can go to their website as well, MyVitalC.com. And then
I've got a link. Earlier, I've got a link for your audience. So your audience should go to MyVitalC.com/best you, if that's a good one, or I could change it, but that
perfect.
Yep. There will be a coupon code on that page for $15 off their original order. And again, that's MyVitalC.com/best you.
Beautiful. I appreciate that. And then also he's talked about his book, and if you're watching on YouTube, you saw his book, Live Longer and Better. That'll be linked up in the show notes and everything as well. I appreciate that.
Now, I've got something to share on the book real quick. I have a charity aspect. So the book's $20. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it. It won't be on the landing page on the MyVitalC.com/best you landing page, but you can go in the menu structure and find the book. Book's $20. For $10 extra, I'll assign it. That entire $10 goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom about child sex trafficking and trying to manage that horrific situation. So the entire signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. I also have a co-author. He's a 2-time New York Times #1 best-selling author, Dr. Corsi. If you want both signatures, it's $15, and the entire $15 goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
That's awesome. I love that. Chris, just generally speaking, last question is, what has you most excited about in the longevity space? Like, what is getting you fired up and most increasing your hope and belief that like 125 is possible?
Yeah, I think it really is the speed with which we're seeing medical information change, right? It just, and again, with AI, I think the changes are gonna be more impactful. And so what we think we know, what we think we can do today, and again, like I said, if it is possible biologically, or with, we're cyber biologically, however you want to call that, right? Because in a lot of the books right now, Life Force with Tony Robbins and Peter Diamandis, and then Lifespan, they talk about, hey, we can grow our own organs, right? We're gonna be able to have replacement parts. I'm not even sure those are going to be necessary aspects. But whatever it is that we need to live longer, that it's going to happen a lot faster than we realize. There's a phrase that I heard at a conference once, which is, if you are uncomfortable with it's a little tongue in cheek, but if you are uncomfortable with the pace of change today, don't worry, it's never going to be slower than it is today, right? Information is just going to go faster and faster. You think about growing up and having a dial phone and then having a cell phone and then the phone getting smaller, and finally it seems to be lasting a little longer. Hopefully they'll get a better handle on that, right? Like now it's connected to Starlink, so you can be potentially anywhere on the planet and at least be able to text, right? Like this, the changes are amazing that we've seen, and we're going to continue to see those in the medical field. And I'm extremely excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you diving into so much of the science of what is going to allow us to live better and live longer. It's super exciting stuff, and I know I'm continuing to get more and more curious and excited about things, and I know everybody else is as well, and they got a lot of value and education from today's episode. So y'all make sure you go check out myvitalc.com/bestu to get $15 off, and then you can go grab his book. Remember, if you get the signature, then all of that will go to Operation Underground Railroad as well. But Chris, that's all we got today, man. Thanks so much.
Well, one last thing. When they go to that link, we have 3 different oils, right? So we sell the ESS60 molecule in olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. People ask which one we recommend. We always recommend the olive oil for 2 reasons. First, we're a science-backed organization. All the research is on olive oil. And second, you can get the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule in that olive oil. Additionally, you get 20% off if you go on subscription. Go ahead and take advantage of it. You can cancel it at any time. Our customer service has like 900 5-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do an amazing job. Just take advantage of that discount.
Sweet. I love it. Well, now that's all we got. I appreciate it. I hope you guys go take advantage of that stuff. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Nick.
What an enlightening episode with Chris. He shared some truly incredible insights into the science of longevity and how we might be able to extend lifespan significantly. The main piece of value from today was understanding how the ESS60 molecule can help us live healthier and longer lives. Before we wrap up today, don't forget to follow the show on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. And make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel as well so you never miss an episode with valuable health and wellness and fitness insights. Here are my personal 3 biggest takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, the importance of the ESS60 molecule and how groundbreaking it might be able to be in extending our lifespan significantly. Number 2 is the importance of combating reactive oxygen species when it comes to living a longer life. And then third and finally is eating an anti-inflammatory diet and a diet that's packed rich with antioxidants can really help us be a key strategy for living a longer life as well. If you can do these things, you'll continue to get closer to the healthiest version of yourself, and ultimately, you'll continue to get closer and closer to your best you.